Here to explain how you can build and retain a high-performance team to win your market is Adam Robinson, CEO of Hireology. Please give him a warm welcome.
Hi, my name's Adam Robinson. I'm the CEO of Hireology, and we're here today to talk about the people side of the automotive business. When you look at the operating expenses flowing through dealerships in the U.S. today, what you find is about $9 billion comes through just running stores on the fixed and variable side of the business. Manufacturers these days have actually pushed cash across the line, and dealers are holding manufacturer money. So on the OpEx side, dealers are holding dollars. It's positive. It's actually a risk to many dealers. They're holding manufacturer dollars. And what's interesting is we show up and go to our 20 group meetings and bunker down in a hotel room and talk about how to turn used cars one day faster, which is important, and how to shave a quarter point off our marketing expenses, which is important. Meanwhile, $60 billion, or nearly 70% of the cost structure, is tied up in our payroll. And we're really not doing anything about that. So when I talk to dealers and I ask them, how is your hiring process? Most dealers would freely admit that they have a better process for buying office supplies than they do for hiring people. And so that's what we're here to talk about today. We're here to talk about your untapped competitive advantage, and that's your talent and your process. Because I'm here to say your people and the people side of your business really are the only source of sustainable competitive advantage available to you today. I'm going to share with you my thoughts on the talent ecosystem in automotive, and we're going to go through some case studies. It's always been difficult to build an automotive dealership and manage it. You know this already, right? You've been doing it. But I can tell you, the times have never been more complicated or more challenging. You can't control your interest rates. You can't control your gas prices. You can't control your manufacturer. You can't control changing consumer behavior or tastes. You can't control threats to franchise laws. Really, there's really very little you control in your dealership. Most of it is a reaction to a market condition or contingency or to a regulator. The only thing you have 100% control over anymore is whom you put on your payroll. Let me think about that. The only decision that's 100% within your control is who you hire. So isn't it time to treat the hiring process like the core and critical business process that it is? People always ask me, okay, this sounds good, but you're telling me to change my team, change my culture. That sounds like you're asking me to boil the ocean. And I would agree, which is why, in my opinion and experience, building a great team and changing culture starts with building a strong employment brand. The good news is you already know how to do this because you're spending, in many cases, millions of dollars a year investing in your consumer brand. It's your dealer website, it's your social network, it's all the things you do to look great in your local market to your consumer. Your employment brand is simply all of that activity applied to your brand as an employer, and what you'll discover is that those brands are really the same brand. So what happens when you build a strong brand in your market? Well, you get more interest, you get more leads. Not only do you get more leads, you get higher quality leads. So on the hiring side, that means you think you're struggling to attract the right people in. With a stronger employment brand, you actually get more applicants and higher quality leads. Higher quality leads to more closes, right? You're going to hire more people. And the people you hire are going to be better because the quality is better. When you hire better people, that's when you find out who your best managers are. Because guess what? Great people do not want to work for bad managers. So you find out who your good managers are. And when you've upgraded your managers as a result of better hires, that's when culture starts to improve. So strong brand equals more leads, better hires leads to better management leads to better culture, and this system and cycle reinforces itself. So as you're watching along here, just think to yourself, do I think this statement is true or false? True or false? Companies that screen for values have better performance than those that screen for just intelligence. Are values more important than intelligence? It's actually false. The research shows that as a single predictor, raw intelligence is more predictive of job success than a values match. The second question, conscientiousness. That's a $5 word for things like customer service orientation, attention to detail, right? I care about the work that I do. Conscientiousness is a better predictor of job performance than intelligence. True or false? Okay, you guys are going to be on to me here. That's also false. As a single measurement, intelligence is a better predictor of success in this business than conscientiousness. True or false? Integrity tests are not effective in practice because so many people lie on them. Do people lie on integrity tests? That's false. The research ironically shows that people who tend to have low integrity actually tell the truth on integrity testing, which is funny. You think that would be the point where they had the most incentive to lie, but they don't. They actually tell the truth. These are valid tests. And then finally, what does the research say about intelligence on the job? In low-skilled positions, think your quick lane techs or your lot attendants, is being intelligent a disadvantage for performing well in those jobs? You probably guessed it, that's also false. High intelligence has high correlation to success in all roles, from entry-level lot attendant to your general manager to group CEO, right? So why did I go through this? It's because what I can tell you is nobody really understands how to do hiring right. Everybody thinks they know what they're doing to a certain degree, but dispelling some myths, it's actually not just for us, it's even HR professionals. So Harvard Business School asked these questions of thousands of HR professionals, and what you can find looking at this information is 84% of HR professionals got the values question wrong. 82% got the conscientiousness question wrong. 70% missed the integrity test question. So that just proves the point. Nobody knows what they're doing. So if you're watching this and thinking, well, hiring is tough, no one's ever taught me how to do it, it's difficult, just take some solace in the fact that even the professionals don't really know what they're doing, right? It is a skill that we really need to focus on developing as an industry, and so I'm going to take you through some things that really do matter. So contrary to what you might think, job experience is the least predictive factor that will tell you whether or not somebody's going to be successful in a position. What do we do in our interviews now? We look at a resume, we read it back to the applicant or candidate, we have a discussion about their job experience. If they've worked in the car business before, we hire them and we give them a shot. We see how they do. It actually has no correlation to success. Job experience, personality profiling, reference checking, all of those things are very low correlation. Right? The thing that's the most correlated to success are all of the above. So to do this right, you need to be doing all of these things. Looking at experience, doing the testing, checking your references, doing behavioral interviewing, testing integrity, and yes, raw intelligence. And when you do all of those things, what you find is as a multi-measure assessment, it's the most predictive. Now imagine what would happen to your business of instead of hiring the right person 3 or 4 times out of 10, you hired the right person 6, 7, or 8 times out of 10. For most stores, right, the average 55 employee store, the difference between 3 or 4 hires out of 10 and 7 out of 10 is an EBITDA add back of nearly $400,000 per store within 6 months. Right? It is the last untapped ROI in retail automotive. Understand that demographics are working against us as we try to staff our stores. The size of the entry-level labor pool in the United States between 2002 and 2012 dropped by nearly 5%, and by 2022 it will have dropped another 13%. And that's just simple demographics. You're not going to outrun that. It's because Gen X did not have enough children to offset the retiring baby boomers. So we have fewer 16 to 24-year-olds to recruit into the automotive business between now and 2022. We're all going to be competing for a smaller pool of talent. So the time to get really good at this is now. I want you to think of hiring like you think of car insurance. Right? State Farm doesn't need to meet you to know that if you have a sports car in the garage and a 16-year-old in your house and your spouse has had 5 accidents, that you're probably going to cost them some money someday. Maybe not you specifically, but people like you and your risk profile, over the long run, tend to be pretty expensive customers for State Farm. And so what do? They either charge you more or they don't do business with you. What State Farm emphatically never does is forget to ask you what kind of car you're insuring, or forget to ask you if you've ever had an accident, or forget to ask you if you have a 16-year-old or minor in the house of driving age. And they also don't sometimes take one look at you and go, you know what, you look like a good guy, we'll write that policy and we'll see what happens. Right? They've gotten very good at understanding that there are certain scored factors that lead to specific outcomes. Now, hiring is just like that, okay? 50% of what predicts somebody's success has nothing to do with what they've ever done. And these concepts, we understand from our society, we've heard the stories. It works in insurance. It works in medical insurance. Why does Blue Cross Blue Shield ask its customers if they've ever been hospitalized for major heart condition before they insure them? It's because it's highly predictive of future health problems. Why do banks and lenders use the FICO score to predict whether or not you're going to default on their loan? It's because it works. It works. Past behavior is a predictor of future financial activity, right? It works in baseball, very famously with the Boston Red Sox, right? And the whole Moneyball, Billy Beane story. Turns out on-base percentage is very predictive of the value of a player. And it works in hiring. There are things that you can measure that lead to the higher likelihood of a specific outcome. And I'm going to share with you now what those 4 things are. We call those the super elements. And here they are: attitude, sense of accountability, prior related job success, and culture fit. I'm going to go through each of these in some detail now. Attitude I define as a positive disposition toward work. So not necessarily a positive disposition toward this specific job, but toward the act of working. Do I look favorably at work or not? And the research overwhelmingly shows that people with a positive disposition toward work outperform their peers. Some really interesting other research conducted on identical twins separated at birth show that when they looked at hundreds of twin pairs separated and looked at them over 20 years, and they measured lots of things, and among it, the things they measured were job attitude. And what they found was it didn't matter if these twins were married, divorced, single, hourly or salaried, union, non-union, blue collar, white collar, high school degree or not, college degree or not. Didn't matter if they lived in Phoenix or Boston. What they found was identical twins separated at birth report statistically identical levels of job satisfaction. Said differently, when you control for genetics, attitude is more likely hardwired than acquired. And so the person walking around your store with the rain cloud over their head might have some good days, but they're genetically predisposed to have more bad days than good days. So if positive attitude leads to better outcomes, and attitude is more likely hardwired than acquired, shouldn't we be screening for attitude in our stores? And the answer is yes. And it's pretty straightforward to do. Ask a version of the following question. Tell me about the last time that you were so frustrated at work that you almost walked out. Or when was the last time you were so frustrated you thought that it was time to look for another job? And then ask the follow-up. That's the important question. Why? What was going on that day? What happened? Somebody with a positive disposition toward work will go out of their way to take a bad situation and explain why it had a positive impact on them. They'll say things like, well, this is a really frustrating place to work, and yes, it's time for me to look for something else, but They gave me my shot. I learned a lot. I'm very grateful for that. Right? That indicates a positive attitude. Somebody with a negative disposition toward work will say things like, this place is a mess, or that guy's a jerk, or these guys don't know what they're doing, or that place lights people on fire. People with a positive attitude, as I said, overwhelmingly more likely to overperform their peer group, right? So let's screen for attitude. The second element, sense of accountability. The fancy psychology term for this is locus of control, and this is the degree to which you believe as an individual that you have control over the things that happen in your life. So someone with an internal locus of control will say things like, I should have done a better job understanding what you expected of me. I will ask better questions next time. Right? They'll own that. Someone with an external locus of control will tell you the weather's bad, or they'll tell you the inventory wasn't right, or they'll tell you the incentives were wrong, or the advertising was wrong, or whatever, right? It's not their fault. And people with an internal locus of control are 40% more likely to be a top quartile performer in this business. Now, screening for this is pretty straightforward. Again, with a targeted question in the interview, ask the following. Tell me the last time you set an aggressive goal for yourself that you failed to achieve. Right? And the payoff question is the follow-up. Once again, what happened? Why did you fail to achieve that goal? And what you will find is someone with an internal locus of control will answer the question and say something like, well, I should have done a better job preparing, or I should have set the goal differently. I should have worked that extra weekend. I should have secured other resources. I should have staffed it differently. Right? I would have made the goal if I had done something different. Someone with an external locus of control will say, they set the goal for me too high. They didn't give me what I needed, right? Somebody else is responsible for that bad outcome, not me, right? These kinds of behaviors and questions you can pick up pretty easily, right? So I encourage you to do that. Third, prior related job success. This is the resume. This is the experience of the applicant, but it's not what you think. What we're looking for here is, has this person ever worked in a job where their performance was formally measured? So you think about a sales role. Sales role, pretty straightforward. You ask somebody the following question. Before you went home at the end of the day, how did you know that you had a good day? What measurements or metrics did you use or were used with you to tell you whether or not you had a good day or not? Right? For somebody in an inside sales role or a call center role, BDC role, that might be, I needed to make 60 phone calls a day, get 10 contacts, and set 3 appointments. If I set 3 appointments a day, I had a good day. And if I was unable to get those 3 appointments, as long as I made my 60 calls, I went home feeling pretty good about myself. Somebody that hasn't had their performance measured will answer the question and, some random answer. Well, I had a good day if nobody yelled at me, or I had a good day if it felt good, right? If I went home, or if I was able to leave on time, right? Not being able to recite metrics back to you as to how somebody was measured doesn't by itself make them a bad employee. But what it does, if we think back to this Moneyball risk example, what it does is it increases the risk that they're going to be someone who doesn't work out. Remember, what we're talking about here is risk assessment, and we want to pick people who have a high likelihood of success. I'm not going to take a chance managing somebody who's never been managed to metrics before. I'm going to move on. I'm going to look for somebody different. And then finally, prior culture fit. Right? This is the degree to which the candidate shares the values of the organization and actually wants to do the job. Right? We've all had the experience of that superstar new hire employee who quits in 3 months because they found something better. Right? So somebody has to fit your culture, and they also have to want to do the work. Culture fit is a bit of a gray area, and if you're not careful, it can get you sued, so be very careful with this. The culture fit I'm talking about here is actually the fit between you as the manager and the candidate. That's the most important fit. Your value system as a manager is what determines whether or not a candidate is going to be a better match for you or not. Right? So pay attention to the things that you see valuable in work. So I want you to do an exercise here as you watch. I want you to think about the best person in your organization. If I asked you, who is the best person who works for you, would you know who that is? I think you probably know who that is. Everybody has that best person, right? If I ask you, chips are down, the gun's to your head, you got to pick one person to get the job done, who do you pick? All right, so think about that person in your head. Now I want you to think about a list of adjectives that describe all of the reasons why you picked that person. Dependable, honest, ethical, good-natured, positive, reliable, whatever that list is. That bulleted list you just created, that is your value system as a manager. You just listed all of the things that you find incredibly valuable when it comes to work. And so your job now that you understand that, be self-aware, because people that come in that fit that look like that profile, you're going to be biased to say yes to hire them, and you're going to overlook people who might not exactly work that way, who could also be great people, right? So just the more you're aware of your own value system as a manager, you're going to be that much more effective. So let's talk about how we land top-tier Gen Y talent. When we survey this generation, we ask them what they want in an employer. They tell us three things in the following order. Number one, career growth. Number two, pay stability. Notice I didn't say most pay stability. And three is work-life balance. Now, what do we offer in the car business? Pretty much the exact opposite of all three of the things that this generation thinks are most important. No career path, full commission jobs, and long nights and weekends. And we wonder why we can't find people that want to work in our stores. We don't have a recruiting problem. We have a marketing issue. Right? We have not done a very good job explaining ourselves to the workforce and helping them understand why we're a great career choice for them. All right, so here's my job description. I want you to tell me whether or not you would put your son, daughter, neighbor's friend, cousin into this job. Okay, my job description. You're going to park cars. You're going to wash cars. You're going to get yelled at. And you're never going to see your family again. Who's in? Who's in? Right? That's ridiculous. Nobody would take that job. Except what you find is a lot of people want to take that job. Right? So presenting the enterprise management program, where you two can park and wash cars at the airport at 4 a.m. in a suit for minimum wage, okay? And you tell me kids won't work in the car business from this generation, but for 25 years, Enterprise Rent-A-Car has been the single largest employer of college graduates in the United States. Why? Well, they certainly aren't saying to people at career fairs, you know, this job is, kind of sucks. You're going to park and wash cars at the airport and the pay's bad, right? You're going to have to do it in a suit, but if you need a job, we have jobs. Are you interested? They don't sell it that way. What they say is, this job isn't for everyone, but if you give me 2 years of your life, one of two things is going to happen. Number one, you're going to be set up for success in your career, whatever you do, because we're going to teach you customer service, sales and marketing, finance, operations, hiring and firing. Right? 2 years from now, you're going to know how to run a $30 million frontline retail operation, and you can get a job anywhere. 5 to 10% of the people who start with us stay with us for life. And I will show you how, if you start with me next month, you could be making $500,000 a year running your own region someday. Right? By the way, here's Rick to tell you his story because he's doing that now. That's pretty powerful. Right? Or you could do this. Right? This is an actual retail ad. Actual retail ad in the Chicago market from a retailer you would probably recognize, who's come straight out of the DMS with the caps lock key on, straight to Craigslist to post the worst job ad I've ever seen. You've got competitors talking about career path, and pay, flexibility, and a wonderful life and all the things that they're going to get out of it. And we're out in the market with all caps job postings on Craigslist, and we're wondering why we can't attract the right people. Right? What I'm showing now is the career website for Schomp Automotive. Schomp Automotive has the best career website in automotive right now. They do a phenomenal job with it. And I'm going to take you through the things they do and why it works. All right? The number one thing to remember, and I said this at the beginning of the presentation, recruiting is a sales and marketing process, and your consumer who's walking through the store looking for that car is the same person who's going to be looking for a job. It is the same person. So whether that person's coming to the website to look for a car or a job, maybe it's both. You spend time giving them a great experience as a car buyer. But let me ask you a question. If you got out your phone right now as you watch this, try to apply to a job at your own store, what would happen? Try it. Get out your phone and try to apply to a job at your own store. Right? What percentage of consumer car leads originate on a mobile device? For most dealers, 60, 70, sometimes 80%. Guess the percentage of leads for job applicants that originate on a mobile device. You guessed it, 60, 70, 80% in some markets. So again, you think you have a recruiting issue. I'm telling you, you have a marketing problem. You're invisible to the market. Right, here's the questions to ask yourself. Is your dealer career site up to par? Number one, is it mobile friendly? Can I apply for a position on my phone? Number two, is it easy to send in a resume or application? Well, guess what document nobody has on a mobile device? A resume. So if your non-optimized career page or job application requires a resume for submission, not only are you losing a high percentage of your traffic because it's not mobile optimized, people can't even submit the form because they don't have a resume to attach. Third, are you talking about what's in it for them? Or are you just saying, if you're interested, send us a resume? Right? That doesn't work anymore. Right? It'd be like asking somebody, if you're interested in buying a car from me, just send me your information. I might call you back. That doesn't work. Right? And is it search engine friendly? Just like on the consumer side of the business, job applicants are not going to job board sites and searching for jobs anymore. They're going to the Google search bar or Bing search bar and putting sales jobs in Chicago into the search and seeing what comes up. If your jobs aren't coming up, you are invisible. Again, you don't have a recruiting issue, you have a marketing funnel problem. Now let me share with you what happens when you're able to get this right. What I'm showing here are data from an automotive group in Minneapolis. They gave us permission to share this. When they moved to a system of base pay, an explained career path, and 40-hour work weeks, within a year, they had doubled the number of female salespeople on their staff. The percentage of people on their showroom floor with a post-secondary college degree went from 15 to 88%. The average age of their workforce dropped to 32, and the percentage of Gen Y in their workforce went to 71%. Now this was 5 years ago, so these guys were way ahead of their time. I can show you literally hundreds of dealerships who have made moves like this and have seen incredible benefits to their people, which has led to better management, better culture, and better overall performance. Thank you very much.